So we are so blessed to be in community together. We are bringing to close this Fiscal fitness program for preparing for 2014. And so what we do is we come to our congregation and we say, hey, would you give us an estimate of your giving for next year? So you'll notice these little cards in your bulletin. Today it would make Kurt very happy. And my life is all about making Kurt happy. It would make Kurt very happy if we finished this today and then he could take a Sunday off and rest. So if you haven't done that, we'd invite you to do so. I also want to extend the invitation. What I'm very profoundly aware of is we are being called to our greater self. Do you feel that in your own life? That you're being called to be your greater self. And the problem with this is that your greater self meets your current self. And there's some dialogue that goes on. Nice to see that Linda finally stepped into her greater self. We've always known that this was the divine archetype that she's been living from. So nice. Please stand and let him see there, dear. In case you didn't see it, mischievous is the... She said, oh, it's Halloween, but we know. We know. So when our divine self meets our current self, there's a conflict. And it's uncomfortable, isn't it? It's like, I often find that we say, you can change your life. Come and take a course with us. Come and enroll in Foundational Studies or Prosperity Plus, one of the beginning courses, so that you might have this different experience. We use a phrase that says, change your thinking and change your life, which people get into, and they're like, this is cool, except that then they have this moment of realization. And they have this moment of realization when they say, oh my God, if I'm going to have a different life, I'm going to have to be different. Where was that in the brochure, right? So we find that if we're really going to embrace this larger life that is calling, we have to be willing to step into the bigger picture of who we are. And so some things always happen as we're moving forward. There's some things that happen. We have to first embrace the vision of possibility. We have to move into that awareness and understanding that we speak about Sunday after Sunday, that you are more than your current circumstances. You are more than what's going on in your life. I loved listening to James and Heather's story. I didn't know that they had hit a bump in the road 5 years ago, when all was well, and then things didn't appear so well. How many of you remember 2009? For myself, I was hiding out in Sun Valley. Finally, was kind of moved into real estate, into what was at the time a lucrative market, and was very excited about the possibilities. And remembering that as I was moving into that, I realized that the first deal I was going to put together, the commission on that was basically going to equal the salary of the year before that I had made working. I know. It was like, sweet. This is so good, And then things changed. But there was no sign that things are changing. Have you noticed this, how this is in your life? There's no sign that says your life just changed. No. So you continue to do what you've always done. And so I entered the real estate market just as it was going off the cliff. And we didn't realize that there was a cliff. We ever see those Wile E. Coyote movies, The Roadrunner, and there's always this moment of just hanging. Right? So I was in that moment of hanging and went, oh my God. I tell people, I was so successful in real estate that within just a matter of years, I was waiting tables again. Brilliant. He's brilliant. It's amazing, isn't it? And yet what I found is that through that experience and through, for many of us, though that period of the economy changing and life being different was an opportunity for us to reevaluate our lives. For James and Heather, they reevaluated and came back to where they were supposed to be in Utah, and rebuilt. But they had some tools. They had some tools that allowed them to survive crisis. And this is what I would speak to you today, is that when we understand spiritual truth, we begin to realize that there is a power and there is a presence in which we live and move and have our being, that is our very life and that is our sustainer. Jesus was hanging out at the well. I don't know. I was not there. So who's new here? I just need to know this. I just need to ask this question. Who's sort of new? Okay, forgive me now. But I figure if the mischievous or the Krishna harp guy or if you're still with us, you're okay. You're going to make it fine through this thing, right? Yeah, you just never know what to expect. I was talking earlier about, I've loved this series, and what I've loved about the series is that we had all these interesting people. And so we had Kurt show up and tell his beautiful story and what an amazing man he is, and just has done such an amazing job of presenting this and his willingness to serve. And then to follow with Kathy and Shane, who are unique expressions of the divine. And you kind of think, well, if it works for them, how hard can it be, right? You're just saying. And then to have Susie and Tiffany and share their love and how much they love each other, and that when their family couldn't adapt to the fact that two women loved each other and wanted to commit their lives to each other, this family said, of course. It's a beautiful thing. And then James and Heather to talk about what they've gone through, but they had this awareness. They had an awareness of a spiritual principle. You see, so when this woman meets Jesus at the well, she says, hey, Jesus, give me some of that water. Now, I don't know if she said that, but I like to fill in some of the dialogue a little bit, right? And he said to her, I can give you can have this water, but you will thirst again. But I can bring you to a living spring, and you will never thirst again. For what he was talking about is there is an inner awareness that spiritual teachers help us to understand that says you are a part of a dynamic life. You are a part of a presence and a power that is coursing through your very veins. That is the source and the sustainer of who you are. But the illusion that we carry in the world is to say that the forms of our lives are the thing. And so we go about living this ordinary life, and we think, oh, I know what I'll do. I'm going to build a really good portfolio, and then I'll have safety and security. Or I'm going to build my life in such a way that I'll have more stuff. And if I have more stuff, then I'll have a life that works. Or we think that there's this place of security and safety. And then life happens. And recessions come. And tornadoes come. And earthquakes happen. And diagnoses are given. And people die. And things change. But for those of us that know that there is an inner source and an inner presence that is our life and our substance, then we can stand with Jesus when he said, be not dismayed by appearances, right? The form is always going to change. The lives that we live, the forms in which we live them always change. But there is a well of the living waters. And that if you know that, you will never thirst again. You see, our work as spiritual/human beings is to live in such a way that we can sustain ourselves through the changes that our lives inevitably go through. And so we celebrate, as we say, we celebrate when times are good. Yippee. And we extend compassion and sorrow when it's tough. when things get difficult, because that is part of our humanity. It doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. It simply means life is happening. And all of it is part of a larger picture that we don't understand. So I look back and I say, so this whole thing that happened in my real estate career, was that a good thing or a bad thing? What? There is a right answer here, by the way. It's how I came to be your minister, so thank you. Jeez. Enough of the pop quizzes. You guys are terrible at this whole thing. Right? You know, it felt terrible at the time. So I'm not saying let's just love what's happening, but it is to know that something through that experience really slapped me upside the head and said, Marty, you've been hanging out long enough. You know why you are here. You remember walking through the restaurant one night and having clouds part. And the voice say, Marty, and this is how the voice talks to me, Marty, what the hell are you doing? The voice needs to get my attention sometimes, so apparently it's not afraid of profanity, right? It's like, you know why you are here. Get on with it. And so I made a choice to serve, and I looked at some options about that desire to be in ministry, that desire to lead a congregation again. And it took me some interesting places. And I looked at some options. This Salt Lake was never on the radar. You guys were happy and healthy and growing. And then I got a phone call and they said, would you come help us? I said, sure, I'll come help you. And so what I notice is that my commitment to be of service without a particular attachment to outcome is what gets the flow going. What I hear in James and Heather's story is their commitment to spiritual principle, even when they had really good excuses why not to. Right? Did circumstances determine something? No. Spiritual truth, spiritual principle determines. And this is why we develop the spiritual practice. I hope your life is absolutely wonderful today, and I hope it only ever gets better. That's my hope. But there's a part of me that knows there's going to be some things that happen in your life that you have no control over. And when that comes, it is my fervent prayer that you've built a spiritual bank account that will help you sustain that. We are having a service for Diane Christensen's nephew, Laurie Bartunik's son, this Tuesday, 11 o'clock. 36 years old, went to the restroom, never came back. Now, I don't know all the circumstances. I just know that we as a community will extend our love and service to them. I don't know what the soul's journey is that says 36 years is enough, or 85 years is enough, or 2 years. I don't know. But I do know that as painful as this is, there is a spiritual truth and reality that is at work. And so when those things in life that challenge us, it is, what well do we go to? Do we go to the well of the living water from which we will always drink? This is the invitation. So even as we are in this time of estimated giving and all that sort of thing, my prayer for each of you is that whatever you estimate, that you exceed that because your life is so good. That's my prayer. Now, there's a reason we do this. Organizationally, we invite you to make an estimate of giving so that we can be good stewards of the money. So we can create budgets and have a spending plan and figure out if we're going to pay the musicians this year or not pay the musicians, whether we're going to have a youth program or not have a youth program. We are. We already decided we are. Just sit down. Don't go anywhere. Right? It helps us do that. And so everybody participating gives us a better idea of what we can expect next year. But for me, more importantly, the lesson is what I have discovered is that when I am willing to participate in a divine flow, when I am willing to give even when it doesn't make sense. When I am willing to serve, even when I don't feel like I have enough time. When I am willing to give first with the expectation that my good returns to me, then what I find over and over and over is the universe absolutely supports me in being in the right place, doing the right thing, having the greater experience of life. But our illusion, the ego mind says, well, you can't afford that. Right? This is that conflict. Step into your greater self. You can't. What makes you think you can be that? Right? So we're always coming up against those limiting beliefs. But if we are willing to act on faith, if we are willing to put our faith more in the spiritual principle than the realm of form, then our lives take on a whole nother level of being. We're no longer bound by the realm of our lives, but rather we exceed and move beyond the circumstances. There's so many stories I want to tell right now. I'm not going to. I know. There was one person, everybody else like, thank God, are we ever going to get out of here? I'll tell you later, okay? But I loved what Michael Gott said last week. If you weren't here, go online and watch it online. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, he's amazing, obviously. But you know, I thought about the circumstances of our meeting. And I think his soul's journey is going to happen no matter what. But that chance encounter of two people meeting and saying, wow, you are brilliant, come sing at my church, which was completely exceeding where he was in the moment. But sometimes we see that for each other. A friend of mine, as I was going through a very difficult period in my life, not knowing who I was and having created some chaos and havoc, said, you know, you ought to check out this spiritual community I belong to. Now, I have to tell you how open and receptive I was. On apparently 1%, because there had to have been some opening. I was not looking for church. Thank you. That worked. And yet, something within me said, you're looking for a better way, what's it going to hurt? Changed my life. Changed my life. And somebody stood up and said, you know, we could use some people to support our youth. I said, I love kids. I'd love to do that. Changed my life. So, I would invite you to pay attention. There is a larger story seeking to be revealed through you. You glimpse it, you feel it, you sense it, and probably you run like heck from it from time to time. You tell your old story about who you used to be. My invitation to you is to recognize you are enough. You are a divine emanation of the one living Spirit. That God itself is seeking, always seeking its highest self-expression. And the way it does that is through us. Not for us, not to us, but through us. So as you're willing to embrace your greater possibility and to step forward in faith, then all manner of things come forward to support you in living that higher vision. I get that it's uncomfortable. It's why we do spiritual community. Ours is not a community that says, when you're comfortable, come on down. It's, come on down. If you're happy, great. We'll see you next week, when things aren't so great, right? Because that's the nature of life. But what we all know at the core of our being is we are part of a larger something that is seeking its expression. And wherever you are in your life today, be not dismayed by appearances. What I love about James and Heather was they did what they knew to do spiritually, even when their lives weren't making sense. This is the answer, my friends. Give before you receive. Serve before you are served. put forth the energy and the effort first, knowing that the universe always cycles back, always completes itself. And that's how we move out of wherever we are into our greater possibility. Just know, wherever you are on this journey, that you are loved and you are supported in being fully who you are. Let us pray. Taking a deep breath and allowing ourselves to rest in the awareness of the truth of our being. To rest in the awareness that we are divine emanations of one living spirit. To rest in the awareness that even through the act of breathing, there is that which is the breath and that which is breathing the breath. Something more. We call it spirit or God or the divine. And as we rest in that awareness, we are reminded of those powerful words, "Be not dismayed by appearances, but know the truth." And so I speak that truth now for each of us gathered here. As I recognize and know each as a living being of the one life. And therefore that which is true for the whole must be true for its parts. I recognize the presence of wholeness revealing itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. I recognize and know and call forth the presence of abundance. No matter what the appearance, we live in an abundant universe. And so we consciously choose in this moment to live the abundant life, to joyously give and graciously receive. I know that there is a presence of unconditional love that is never diminished, can never be destroyed. And as we enter into that awareness, into that presence, all things are made new. Our lives are healed and restored. Our relationships are transformed by the power of unconditional love. And so joyously and fully we forgive ourselves and each other. For we realize there is something more at work. We own that we are powerful spiritual beings right here, right now. We allow our light to shine brightly in the world. We recognize that God is and all is well. And so we live from that place of awareness, of understanding, of power. And we know that our lives unfold in ways of peace, joy, and harmony. We are blessed. And so from this awareness, we extend a blessing. We extend a blessing to this spiritual community, knowing that it is a divine idea unfolding perfectly, divinely guided, abundantly supplied. We extend a blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet this day. To the planet itself, we see a planet at peace, a world that works for everyone. And as always, we extend a blessing. For we know that where two or more are gathered, the presence of the I Am is there. And so we bless all priests, all rabbis, all ministers, all teachers of every faith. For where God is revealed, life is good. For all of these blessings and so many more, I simply give thanks, releasing this word to that law of mind that knows what to do and how to do it in perfect timing, in divine right order. It is done. As together we say, and so it is. I am.